bad decisions that Blake and Ryan got charged a lot of money.
The judge just ruled that he doesn't want to see any more evidence, or he doesn't want to hear more arguments from Blake Lively on how she should recover these attorneys' fees from Justin Baldoni and the Wayfarer parties. It's pretty obvious where he stands at this.
The judge had seen enough. No more evidence, no more arguments, and absolutely no more excuses. The gavel came down with a force that echoed through the entire New York federal court, shattering Blake Lively's desperate attempt to recoup millions in skyrocketing attorney fees. It wasn't just a simple denial, it was a total dismantling of a legal strategy that the court found unprofessional and predatory. The Hollywood Golden Girl was finally facing a reality her high-priced PR team couldn't spin. This wasn't just a loss. It was a public humiliation that exposed the dark underbelly of a legal war she refused to end.
When you want to parade around and call a loss a victory, this is your attempt to do so. It seems like more nonsense from Ms.
Judge Louis Lyman didn't just rule against her. He essentially told her legal team to sit down and be quiet. He was done with the late-night letters and the weaponized filings that seemed designed to harass the other side rather than seek actual justice. Imagine being a global superstar and having a federal judge call out your team for complete unprofessionalism in open court. It was a clear signal that the court recognized the personal vendetta hidden behind the legal jargon. This was the moment the tide officially turned against Blake, leaving her team scrambling to pick up the pieces of her reputation.
Much money, and your lawyers just keep charging, you're not really paying attention, and then suddenly you realize, oh wait, those lawyers were actually...
We are talking about $60 million in combined legal fees for a dispute that should have been settled months ago. That is an astronomical amount of money, even by the most elite Hollywood standards. The judge was reportedly baffled by the sheer volume of paper being thrown at his desk for a case that had essentially reached its end. Blake wasn't spending this money to win a clear legal victory. She was spending it to sustain a fight she simply refused to lose. It was a war of attrition designed to bleed the other side dry, but the judge was the one who ended up losing his patience first.
Is Blake thinking by any chance that if she is successful in 47-1, that all of her legal fees, all $70 million or whatever it was for all, and he only dismissed the Baldoni.
One of the most shocking revelations was the tactical use of midnight filings. Her legal team was dropping massive 72-page documents at 11 p.m. on the East Coast. In the legal world, that is a move often reserved for shady tactics. It forces the opposition to scramble overnight to meet morning deadlines while the judge is still asleep. The court saw right through it, labeling these moves as a desperate attempt to exhaust and bother Justin Baldoni's legal team rather than provide any actual evidence. It was the kind of move that looks desperate and unprofessional to any experienced jurist.
To Nick Shapiro, who handles PR for Lively's camp, he jumped in at that point in the conversation with the political argument. Consider the optics, he said. What if Baldoni, the self-stylized male feminist, became the man who helped strip legal protections from women who report
When you actually look at those 72-page filings, the truth is even more embarrassing. Only 4 pages were actually dedicated to the legal claims at hand. The rest was pure filler, heavily redacted nonsense, and legal smokescreens. It was a massive paper wall built to hide the fact that the actual case was crumbling under its own weight. The judge wasn't just annoyed, he was furious that the court's time was being used for what looked like a high-stakes revenge plot disguised as a lawsuit. It proved that the entire battle was a smoky screen designed to hurt someone who said no.
How was the movie, Ryan?
While Blake was presenting herself as a champion for women on the red carpet, the legal documents told a much darker story. She was allegedly using her massive wealth and legal power to pressure regular women involved in the case. We are talking about public relations executives and witnesses who did not have her millions or her famous husband to protect them. She was reportedly threatening them with financial ruin if they didn't fall in line with her version of events. The judge found this tactic particularly intolerable, as it crossed the line from a legal dispute into outright bullying.
Shy too, so I just like to
got the kids
have my kids with me. They're like, I probably could have fit them under my dress.
Blake's legal team tried a desperate maneuver by citing California's Civil Code Section 47.1. This is a law specifically designed to protect survivors from weaponized defamation lawsuits. The irony here is absolutely staggering. She tried to use a law meant for actual victims to force Justin Baldoni to pay her massive legal bills. She argued his countersuit was a retaliatory action, but the court had already dismissed nearly all of her own claims. Using a law born from the movements meant to protect the vulnerable for a personal financial grab was a step that many saw as a total betrayal of the law's intent.
My kids each painted a painting, a watercolor painting. So each of my 4 kids.
It gets even weirder when you look at the geography. Her team tried to apply this California state law in a New York federal court for a movie that was primarily filmed in New Jersey. When that didn't work, they took the same strategy to Texas, seeking nearly $800,000 from a PR consultant associated with the case. This is what experts call forum shopping, which is desperately hunting for any judge in any state who might give them a win. It showed a complete lack of a coherent legal strategy and a high level of desperation to find a loophole that would force someone else to pay.
No matter how Blake inserts herself into things, a director's film, the Met Gala, she leaves an icky rest.
One of the core pillars of her original complaint involved an incident where she claimed Justin entered her trailer, which she framed as a major violation. However, the evidence revealed a completely different story. It turns out she had actually texted him and invited him inside herself. When those texts surfaced, her credibility didn't just take a hit, it vanished. You cannot claim someone is an intruder when you have the digital receipts showing you welcomed them in. The judge saw this pattern of shifting narratives and was not impressed by the attempt to frame an invited interaction as wrongdoing.
Stepped up and said, "No way." We've seen that in text messages, and that makes me believe that Emily has been a lot more involved in actually pushing back at Blake.
To manage the growing fallout, Blake brought in the big guns. We are talking about high-level crisis managers like Nick Shapiro to handle the optics. Their strategy was bold: frame her personal financial battle as a global crusade for all women. They essentially tried to guilt-trip the public and the court by suggesting that if she lost her fee battle, it would be a blow to legal protections for survivors everywhere. It was a calculated move to use social justice as a shield for a multimillionaire's legal expenses, but the courtroom is not a press junket, and the judge was not buying the spin.
Justin does write a book about this. It's a guaranteed bestseller. It's going to be huge. I agree. It is going to be huge if he agrees.
Behind the scenes, Ryan Reynolds wasn't just a supportive husband. He was reportedly deep in the trenches of this legal war. Reports suggest he was rewriting scripts and controlling the promotional materials through his company, Maximum Effort. He was using his massive industry leverage and connections to help push the narrative against Justin Baldoni. For a while, it seemed like the ultimate Hollywood power move, with the industry's golden couple working in tandem to erase a man who dared to challenge them. He was using all his power to help his wife destroy this guy's reputation for good. But here is where the story takes a chilling turn for the couple. As soon as the legal evidence became public and the narrative started to collapse, Ryan was suddenly nowhere to be found. During the exact window when the legal settlement was being finalized and Blake had to face the music at the Met Gala, Ryan was in Bermuda. He was watching boat races for the Sail GP circuit while his wife's reputation was burning to the ground. It was a shocking move that left many wondering about the true state of their perfect marriage when the cameras weren't rolling and the pressure was on. Walking that red carpet solo was a massive statement that the public didn't miss. Blake had always used her husband as a brand enhancer, but this time she was on her own to face the backlash. The optics were terrible for her legal case. While her lawyers were in court claiming she was under immense financial and emotional distress, she was posing in front of hundreds of cameras in a dress that cost more than most people's cars. The disconnect between her legal claims of hardship and her public life of extreme luxury was becoming impossible for the judge or the public to ignore anymore. Even her attempts at being a relatable mother backfired spectacularly during the height of the drama. On the red carpet, she showed off a bag featuring her children's watercolor art, calling it a unique personal treasure. Within hours, it was revealed that this was actually a custom service offered by Judith Lieber for $10,000. She was essentially using her kids' art to sell a luxury accessory while her legal team was crying poor in federal filings. It was a tone-deaf move that highlighted just how out of touch the whole campaign against Justin had become to the average person. Perhaps the most calculated part of the whole war involved a women's charity called Vital Voices. Justin had just been given a prestigious award for his advocacy for women. Almost immediately after, Blake filed her legal complaints, and within 2 weeks, the charity revoked his award. It was a perfectly timed strike designed to humiliate him on a global stage. The fact that Blake follows this organization led many to believe her Hollywood connections were used to weaponize a nonprofit against a personal enemy. It was a level of calculation that made the judge and the public feel very uneasy. When it finally came time to settle the main lawsuit, Blake and Ryan were reportedly desperate for one thing: a total non-disclosure agreement. They wanted to bury this story forever and ensure Justin could never discuss the incident publicly again. They needed that gag order to protect their brand from the evidence Justin was holding. But this is where the plan failed. Justin and his wife, Emily, refused to sign. They drew a hard line in the sand, choosing their voice over a quiet exit. They were not going to let the Hollywood elite push them into a state of permanent silence. Blake was eventually trapped. She couldn't risk going to trial because of the potential for her evidence to be exposed as fraudulent, but Justin wouldn't give her the silence she craved. In the end, she was forced to settle her own lawsuit without getting the one thing she wanted: a gag order. There was no money exchanged and no admission of guilt, but the most important part was what was missing from the contract. Justin Baldoni walked away a free man, legally allowed to tell his side of the story to whoever will listen, whenever he chooses, without any fear of legal retaliation. Now, the tables have completely turned on the golden couple. Justin is reportedly being flooded with offers for a tell-all interview or a documentary series, with some deals reaching the $10 million mark. He has the receipts, the text messages, and the official evidence of everything that happened on that set and in the courtroom. Blake spent millions of dollars trying to keep him quiet, and now she has to sit and wait for the inevitable moment he decides to speak. The power dynamic has shifted entirely in his favor, and there is nothing her legal team can do to stop it now. Industry experts believe a book from Justin could be an absolute blockbuster, exposing the dark side of how Hollywood power couples operate behind closed doors. It wouldn't just be about a movie set. It would be a deep dive into PR manipulation, legal warfare, and the way celebrities use their massive influence to crush independent creators. This is Blake's worst nightmare, a detailed, permanent record of her legal failures and tactical missteps, written by the man she tried to destroy. It would be a story about a massive ship sinking and taking everyone down with it in the process. The fallout didn't just affect the actors involved. Author Colleen Hoover, who wrote the original book, also saw her reputation permanently damaged. She reportedly chose to side with the A-list power of Blake Lively, even unfollowing Justin on social media at Blake's request. She stayed silent while Justin's character was being assassinated by false allegations. Despite him being the one who originally championed her work, this betrayal has alienated a huge portion of her audience who saw her silence as complicity. She traded her integrity for a seat at the cool table, and now she's paying for it. No matter how many red carpets she walks or how many custom bags she carries, there is a lingering, icky feeling around this entire situation. The judge's explosion in court was the final validation that something was very wrong with the way this case was handled from the start. You cannot claim to be a champion for the vulnerable while using the legal system to bully witnesses and recoup millions you chose to spend on a personal vendetta. The public is finally seeing the person behind the movie star mask, and they are not liking what they see in the cold light of the courtroom. The Lively Reynolds brand, once considered untouchable and perfect, is now under serious scrutiny. They built an entire empire on being the most likable couple in the world, but this legal war has exposed a ruthless streak that does not fit the charming image they sell. From Ryan's sudden trip to Bermuda to the tactical midnight legal filings, the facade is cracking. The question isn't if more truth will come out, but when Justin decides to pull the trigger on his version of the story. The silence is deafening, and it is only a matter of time before the full story is finally told. At the end of the day, justice in a federal courtroom looks very different than justice in a high-end PR office. Blake Lively tried to win both, but instead she ended up with a furious judge and a legal opponent who is no longer silenced by an NDA. This case serves as a massive warning to the Hollywood elite. Wealth and power can buy a lot of things, but they cannot buy a judge's patience or a man's integrity. The story of what really happened on that set is far from over, and the next chapter is likely coming from Justin himself. When the truth drops, no glamour will cover it up.